Hi guys, I am Hiral Mehta. I'm a contemporary artist and also the founder of God of Onions podcast. And today we have an amazing chef, Vidit Aren, who is the head chef at Soufflé. And as you guys are here, let me introduce you guys to God of Onions. God of Onions is a platform and a community where we interview people from various genres, businesses, music, feminism, art, and much more. So let me tell you guys more about our guest. So Vidit Aren. So, from loving motorcycles and taking long road trips on bikes to making flavorsome cuisine and to whipping delicious dessert, Vidit Aren is one of the most passionate chefs we've ever come across who deals with the concept of food rich with techniques but not intimidating to eat. No, so let's know about his perspective and let me add him to the live. Hi, Vidit. Uh,
Hey,
all right. So I'm going to start with my questions now. So my first question is, um, there is a vast dichotomy in Indian food and French food. Do you think the introduction of French food in India is shifting and evolving the taste culture in India?
I think the food and culture in India has really come a long way, and I think what's happening is that people are now very eager to try certain different cuisines and different cultures. And I think Bombay is a melting pot of cultures on its own merit, quite frankly. So you have different classes, creeds, religions, countries, people from all over the world living in Bombay. So that kind of naturally creates a need for Bombay to be a little more forward-facing. It creates a need for Bombay to be a little more experimental. And so because of which, even though the Bombay, like Indian food and French food are poles apart, like absolute
True.
opposites, but the connection that the food we'll find in Bombay was still very good because people want to try the new cuisines and try the new food.
True.
So I think that is there.
That's amazing, Vidit. That's amazing. That's lovely. So let me go to my next question. And I think it's quite
Hmm.
amazing speaking about French food because, even French food is slow. And as you said, it comes from various cultures. So let's go to our next question. My next question is, Times Food has commended your, I'm sorry, Buff Wellington again. A huge difference from Indian cuisine. What made you choose such a different cuisine?
So like French food is opposite, like I rightly said earlier as well. French food is like the foreign cousin of Indian food. So it's absolutely opposite.
Oh,
Indian
lovely.
food is
Yes.
Indian food is like loud, vibrant, colorful, and just so assertive in its way, in a very good way. And
True.
French food is more mellow, more nuanced, more balanced, or not balanced per se, but more like it has accents of flavor rather than dominating flavors. Indian cuisine tends to have much more assertive flavor profiles, and French food will have a little more accents of flavors. So for me, the intrigue was that this is a challenge of its own because my palate as being an Indian, I was intrigued to kind of learn to develop a palate for French food and all things French per se. So it kind of came on the back of that. And also certain chefs back in the decades ago, Paul Bocuse, Escoffier, they really put a certain base work for the cuisine to kind of live in. And that really allowed a certain next generations to kind of build on that and really grow the cuisine up. So, for all these reasons, I was pretty vested to learn the craft of French cuisine. And also, there's a huge kitchen culture that revolves around French cuisine. Like, it's the epicenter, right, of how kitchen culture is viewed
True.
globally. French cuisine is how it's viewed, out of that lens is how it's always viewed. So, all these things for someone who's young, you're a young kid trying to like learn the food, learn the cuisine. So, you're attracted to all these things. So, because of which I leaned into it, and as I grew into the cuisine and grew into the entire idea of learning French, would actually learn that once you like acquire the skill sets that French cuisine can offer you, you can actually a chef. You're allowed you kind of you empower yourself with the ability to work across cuisines because you're empowered with such a fundamental strong skill set, courtesy French cuisine. So for all these reasons, I think I was really vested to learn the craft.
Wow, I think that's amazing. That's well said. While you said that, French is far cousin from Indian cuisine, and, coming from various, genres of food, and French, as you said, that it's a a slow food. You have to enjoy while you eat it. I think well said, well said. So I'm going to go to my next question. So, before I go to my next question, Zorro the Lost Mario Mo, he or she asks any tips for new bakers on how to make an authentic French croissant.
I wouldn't even dare commenting on this one. But
Really?
jokes aside, jokes aside. So croissant is like religion, right, in France. French, a lot like us, take their food very seriously. And in terms of making croissant for a home baker, I'll tell you the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is getting really good butter and getting really good flour.
True.
These two things is basically what will define a very good croissant. The technique and the technical skill set required to make croissant, that's acquirable. Of course, you can learn that. Anyone can learn how to bounce a ball, so you can learn how to make croissant, of course. But it's more the struggle of getting the right ingredients. You basically need butter which is very low in moisture and very good butter, non-unsalted, really good quality butter. In India, and I think that's something that India is going to witness very soon in the coming years. That is certain very rudimentary things like milk, butter, cream. I think that's going to get redefined very soon because there's a huge lot of consumers who really want the better stuff. They want the better butter, they want the better cream. So for a croissant, you really need to begin with really good butter, really good strength flour, and also, you need a very cold room to work in. You can't work in your. Bombay is humid. Bombay is eight,
True.
9 months of the year humid. So you need
True.
to. You can only work on a croissant. You can only make a croissant if it's a temperature controlled room. So like an AC in the room is required. Pretty much that's why all the bakeries will always be under in AC. So that's something to begin with. And in terms of tips, I think the better authorities in YouTube who are much better than me. So I'm no one on that. I would really suggest sourcing the ingredients, really getting that right, and then learning the technique. And yeah, that should be it.
Amazing. So there seems to be a lot of coffee and croissant lovers here. So yes, Tilaka Vaspuri, a good cup of coffee to go with the croissant. Even I would love to have that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's amazing. And okay, so let me go to my next question. In a city that thrives on heavy food such as street food, masalas, and spices, what is your perspective on the shift in cooking, eating, drinking habits of India?
I think around the millennia, there was a huge pivot in how India started eating. It changed a lot. I grew up in a family where we went out to eat with specific purposes, right? Birthdays,
True.
anniversary, promotions. It was a lot like that, family, right? That's how I grew up at least. And courtesy millennia, and there was definitely a certain amount of corporate boom India witnessed. India was at the cusp of corporate boom in 2000s. And the dining culture changed a lot. A lot of restaurants came into the offering that redefined how dining is viewed and gave a huge aspirational value to a lot of consumers of how to dine and where to dine. So I think Indian food is inherently, like we discussed, vibrant, loud, and assertive in its how it stands. But I think we
True.
live in a world now that's very globally connected, and it's all bang in the center. There's no more like a huge spectrum anymore. Anyone who's here and anyone who's say in Alaska or Canada, it's so easy for me to now learn about a culture. I can learn about a culture in depth, in detail, in 1 hour flat. So that really empowers you. So that empowers your curiosity, right? That empowers my curiosity.
True.
If I'm curious about something, if I'm curious about a certain cuisine or a culture, I can deep dive into that culture. And a lot of people now, kind of, with all these different subjects, like food being one, beverages being one, and anthropology being its own entire subject, they really kind of allow countries to kind of come together and explore each other's leanings of cuisine and culture. And a lot of the colonization that a lot of the first world countries like France, etc., did, they left a huge imprint for the better on a lot of the colonized countries.
Yes.
So all these things, I think, really leave India today in a place whereby we are much more eager and keen to try new things, new cuisine, new cuisines, new beverages, and there's a huge cultural shift that's coming. And it's a very interesting time to be in the food space, quite frankly, because
Wow.
there are so many people trying to do new things.
Wow. That's beautiful. I think that's a beautiful thing to actually, someone's also said also architecture and various, and
Yeah,
also art, of course, also fashion, also
absolutely.
food. Wow, I mean, the way globalization is happening, I think a lot of cultures, a lot of amazing, it's a fusion of everything. And we have
Right.
everything on our plate or everything in Google or in our phone today. So,
Right.
hi, Neha, how are you? Amazing, amazing. I've got super amazing people joining this live today. So, yes. So, I'm gonna ask my next question. Um, so what are your thoughts on food where what kind of genre of food do you like, or what kind of food do you love cooking the most? And also, would you ever consider trying a combination of different foods together, as you were speaking about the global, where you actually getting food from various places, where you spoke about Argentina and you spoke about various other places apart from French. Which are the other cuisines which is of your interest?
Off late, I've been really meaning to learn about Vietnamese food.
Oh,
And
lovely.
actually, yeah. And actually, before COVID came around, I was scheduled to fly out to Vietnam. A nice big holiday planned out. But
Wow.
COVID came along, so that happened. But
Oh no.
Vietnamese food culture is something I really want to learn. I don't know enough about. Frankly, I have so many chef friends who have strong bearings in Asian cuisine, and I am absolutely a novice. I don't know shit about Asian food. So I really wanted to I'm in a place I really want to learn about Asian food cultures, and I really want to start with Vietnam because again, I think all countries that have been colonized, they invariably have a very rich and a very interesting food culture spectrum because they've been influenced by other colonies back in the day. And that
Lovely.
native country invariably makes it their own. Invariably, native countries always make the influence their own. Even in India, the way uh, tea and all the other things, the way now have your masala chai, right? That's such
Yes.
an Indian tangent
Oh,
to what British
yeah.
has got into India. And that's why I feel such kind of countries have a very rich and very interesting food culture. So Vietnam is something I'm really keen on learning about and trying in terms of food. So yeah.
Lovely. I think that's amazing. So, someone has asked over here, which book should I prefer to for bakery and pastry? And also, he has asked if you want to make a career in France, what steps you can give us. Okay. But I think with it, he actually is the head chef at Soufflé, where he has a fusion of food. But I think I'll give it to you with it to answer these questions.
So what was the question again? I saw the second
So,
one about career.
the first question was, which book should I prefer for bakery and pastry?
Right, right.
And the second question was, if we want to make a career in France, what steps you can give us?
Career in France.
Yes.
Or like you want to basically learn how to cook and learn how to cook in
Yeah.
France. Cook in
Yeah.
France. So for the answer for the book bit, a lot of my friends are hardcore bookworms when it comes to food, and like I have friends who have like bookshelves of just cooking books and cookbooks. I am personally someone who is always taken onto the internet. I am someone who is always taken onto the internet, and I kind of believe in not learning recipes. I never have. I kind of believe in learning concepts. So I encourage people who want to learn bakery pastry to learn concepts, some very rudimentary concepts of how and what of baking. And I don't really have any book per se which I can like tell you as a go-to for bakery and pastry. And there are many. Honestly, if you Google it, you'll get like 10 best idealistic ones. But I would just encourage you if you want to get into breads, for example, maybe start with learning what really is a bread, how does it really work. And bakery is a lot of science, by the way. Bakery is a lot of science. Bakery is way more precise than cooking, unlike cooking.
True.
So you want to kind of learn this conceptually more than recipe, because conceptual learning curves are much faster in terms of how you acquire them than acquiring straight recipes in learning curve. That's the first question. Answer second answer for the working in France bit. So I think what works really well for a lot of people is that they basically go to college in say La Cordon Blanc, or say there's another very good famous school in France. I
Oh,
forget the
lovely.
name right now. So those two schools are there. You can go and learn there the cooking bit, and post your college, you are given placements. You get job offers. So
Oh,
that's how you
wow.
can have your first segue into your first job in France. But the only catch here is it costs a bit. It's a bit rich on the pocket. So if you have the money burn within capacity, if you can afford the money burn, go for it. Smartest call to take, go learn it in France, and basically, yeah, that's the smartest thing to do.
I think that's amazing. And as Tilika says, we have so many dishes and ingredients coming from different places. I think that's true. Would you like to add something to that with it?
In terms of the influences within India or in countries at large.
So, ideally, the ingredients coming from various different
Oh,
places.
oh,
Yes.
of course, there is so much. So I think
Yes.
Harsh has a very good point here. Marry a French. That's fucking smart.
Oh my God. That's okay.
That's a
That's
smart one, bro. So, no, basically, I think in terms of ingredients, if you in fact look in India right now, there is Fiona, right? Lovely entrepreneur. She has a farm called Lishka Farms. It's based in Cochin, and she's growing capers. It's the first
oh,
Indian farm that grows capers. And I've tried her caper berries. I've
wow.
been working with her many years. She possibly has better caper berries than a lot of other brands that I've ever tried.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, in terms of how ingredients have traveled across countries, there is no one who can ever say that their cuisine is protected, that nothing has influenced the cuisine. It's just never going to be possible. I think cuisine is such a perceptive and such a non-precise subject. You can never say that this is an ingredient. So, because tomatoes, onions, a lot of it is not inherently Indian. It came to India, right?
Okay.
So, even in terms of avocados, if I'm correct, that was not
Wow.
inherently Indian. India has found its ways of making avocado and finding, like, making it, propagating it more. So, yeah, I think it's a very big melting pot of things, and there is no precise binary answer per se.
Wow, I think that answers the question, Tilika. So I'm going to go to my question now. So my question is, how have local farmers contributed to the revolution of how chefs work with products?
I think this is a question that is a question every young chef typically asks at this current juncture. And because a lot of chefs, a lot like me, are consciously trying to work with people who have certain same ethos and ideologies. And gone are the days of importing everything. Gone are the days of having a purchase manager who manages your purchases. We live in a world where now in India, a lot of even like it doesn't have to be fancy, very simple restaurants are chef driven, uh, where the chef actually chooses and decides who he's going to work with for what. And I think it starts with that, right? When a chef asks that question, that I want to work with someone like this for this product. So you kind of
True.
look for that person. And because there is a demand, there is automatically a supply generation. So now you actually have in India so many people who have had rich careers in corporate world, and they have said, "Hey, I don't like this. I think I want to work with food. I want to do farming, or I want to be a fromager, or I want to rear chickens or whatever." And when these kind of people, a lot of them that I work with, and a lot of chefs right now work with, when they kind of come to the market and basically go like, "Hi, this is me, that's my product," and that's the face behind the product, and that's the big part, right? It's not the brand, it's the face who is giving you that product. And if I'm the chef and there is someone who's a farmer or vendor, and because I have direct connect with him, there's a equation, there's a dynamic. Beyond business is a dynamic now. And that
True.
really furthers the narrative. It furthers the conversation about how and what food you eat. As a chef, when I am putting food on the table, when I make my menu, I make it a point to mention that it's a free range chicken or it's a local cheese. And because there is pride in that. For me, there is pride in the fact that I'm using a local camembert or I'm using a local chicken. There is pride for me in that, right? So
Yeah.
when you do that, you basically further the narrative. You further the narrative how local produce is by no measure lesser than imported. And that changes how these people, the back end of the industry, really impact and affect. Because once the restaurant industry gives them an outlet to grow their business, scale their product, they're able to go to the end consumer directly. And that
True.
opens up a spectrum of produce and product that the consumer can have. So today, if you go to Nature's Basket Food Hall, there are so
Yeah.
many cheeses, and a lot of them are local. There's so many kombuchas, so many are local. I mean, so much of the product list of SKU Food Hall is local. And all of that
Wow.
happens because there is exposure in the market now. The market knows better. The market wants to try it. So I think that they influence possibly in the biggest way of how the pivot happens for the consumer base in terms of food culture.
Wow, I think that's amazing. I think we have so many things already, which we can easily have today, which we could not, which it was few years ago where we could not have such
Exactly.
ingredients or such things in our hands prior. So I think that's amazing with the way things have globalized and the way we have everything in our hands today where you can learn anything from YouTube to Google, or you can actually find things where you can actually produce things. I think that's quite inspiring, and yes, it's truly amazing where you can actually stay at a restaurant that this is grown locally, and I think that's an amazing thing. So yeah, I think okay. So I'm going to go to my last question, and after that I'll go to the question where I'm going to pin that comment where Love 17 to Bake has asked. So prior to him, I'll ask my question first. So my last, I mean, not the last question, but the second last question is, what advice would you have for chefs who want to try experimental food but are afraid of the feedback of the people?
So it's a contradictory question fundamentally.
Yeah.
If you're doing experimental, you cannot be scared of critique. The point in
True.
day when I do experimental, when I make a plate which I know is a little out there, I by default I'm prepared for people saying I don't like it. And I think
Okay.
it's a matter of so when you cook, when you learn to cook, when you kind of forge a career in the industry and become a chef and all those things, you have to come to a place in your career where you basically learn that there is a certain way in which your consumer market eats. And
Okay.
you can, of course, push your mark in your life and you can explore the most craziest foods in the world, but your food has to have relevance to the consumer. And if I say I want
True.
experimental food, if it's for my own pleasure or my family's pleasure, great. If it's for as a business model, if I'm looking to experimental food as a business model, so that's a very big uphill battle that he's choosing to take on. So, which I'm not saying you can't take on. By all measures, take it on. But remember the inherent limitations that come with it. So, there is no way that you cannot be, uh, you will not get criticism or you will not get critique for that stuff. Experimental
True.
food fundamentally is built because you will have critique for it. And the finest restaurants in the world right now who do so much of avant-garde cuisine, they are experimental to high heavens. So, because they're in a position, in a country, in a place where they can attract that consumer to come and say, hey, try our very cool experimental food, it works. Is India there yet? I do not think so. At the same
Okay.
time, I encourage and I really believe people who want to push the mark definitely should because that's how changes come around. Changes come around because someone pushes things out. So, yeah, I mean, don't be afraid of experimental cuisine. Try it if you want to, but don't be in a place where you think you won't get criticism for it. You will get criticism for it. It's but obvious.
So I think from what you have said with it, I can take 3 pointers out of that. Firstly, is a good amount of research on who you're giving the food to, or on
Absolutely.
what term a person can experiment in. And second is okay. So the brand value. matters. The brand value matters a lot sometimes, but sometimes it does not. But it's somewhere, don't you think that it is a little easier if you have a name in the industry, and if you have experimented something in food and people are more accepting towards it?
Of course.
Yes.
I think you summarized in a very smart way, I think,
Yeah.
and I think it's you have to first of all create a moat around yourself, and that's
True.
by forging a consumer
A good
base
brand.
that understands
Yes.
what you're doing, and they
True.
get who you are. Once you
True.
have established that, you can basically then one fine day be like, okay, I'm going to start a new business now, and I'm going to be experimental with certain things, and I'm going to be a little bit edgy with what I do. And then you can again invite your consumer base in, and they will come in because they fundamentally believe that this guy knows how to cook, and we like him. So you have to basically forge a market base before you come out doing some crazy stuff,
True.
because otherwise you're the madman screaming on the road. Or you can be a poet.
True.
You can be a poet if
You
your
just,
words have,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I think that's wonderfully said. And the third point, which I took from what you said, is that challenge is, I think, everywhere. And experiments is something which you should always do. So, from your journey, or you speaking from your journey, like where you want to experiment from Vietnamese to even the French cuisine, I think it's an ocean, and without experimenting, I think nothing is possible anywhere.
absolutely.
Yes. Now I'm going to go to Le Chef 17 Cake to Bake. His name is Salman. So, yes, Salman, I'm going to read your question. So, Chef, I would be doing a course from Academy of Pastry Arts, Mumbai, an advanced course. So, I need some tips from you after that where I should work. I want to work in France. So, please, can you give me your ideas?
So, okay.
Oops, I have unmuted
Yeah,
one.
the question
Shall I
is
get
simply
back?
what happened?
I'm so sorry. I unpinned. Yes. Yes, this is the
Hmm.
question.
Academy PhD in Mumbai, so I need some tips from you after that where should I work? So, what works also is apply to 200 restaurants in France. Okay, apply to 200 of them and just be incessant, be persistent. If you want to be a chef in your career, learn to be persistent, learn to not give up, because that is fundamentally the toughest part of, I think, any career perhaps.
Any card.
So, so basically apply to 200, 300, 500,000 restaurants in France, and even gun for apprenticeship, gun for a simple apprenticeship, gun for the absolute bottom. Because the logic is you want to get the foot in the door. Once you get the foot in the door, unless you land an apprenticeship, you can get, so getting an apprenticeship is not that tough. You get an apprenticeship for say 2 months or 3 months or whatever it would be. You will have to, however, bear the cost of your flight, your stay, and all those things. So a money burn is inevitable. Understand something? Uh, at the cost of being very, very blunt about exactly how it is. It's a third world country versus a first world country. The economic disparity is obviously there. So if you're going to move from India to France to do work, to learn something, you will have to accommodate the money burn. So you have to go into that mindset and that financial power, of course. And once you get there, you work for 2 months, 3 months, and you work your ass off. And if you're good enough, the very good chance restaurants do offer, basically, based on your work, they will offer you a work visa. That, okay, we want you to hold you back as a commie for 1 year or whatever. I know of cases where people have stayed back in foreign countries on visas and worked in restaurants on cash basis as well, just to get more experience. So I think it kind of boils down to how driven and how much of an idiot you are with your own passion. And people are ready to push things, push a lot of uh, boundaries and laws because they want to learn something and they want to really acquire that and they will do anything to acquire that. So you want to work
True.
in France, I really encourage you to apply to a lot of restaurants and don't apply to fancy spaces. Apply to good, decent bistros. That's where a lot of your French food is made. Your roadside bistros, roadside cafes. Go work there, go learn there because those bistros and cafes are run by like 3 chefs, 4 chefs. And you will learn the craft of multitasking as a true chef in those places. And all the fancy places, you will learn how to work with the tweezer, how to clean leaf forever. But a salt of the earth cook is actually forged in highly pressure situations, and where you have like three chefs, three cooks in a cafe or a bistro. And and there are bistros in France and Europe where the chefs are the pot wash also. They are everything. So you have to
Oh
understand
God.
that that's the grind you sign up for, and you want to take that adventure, go for it. I encourage everyone who does that, but be very aware that you'll have a lot of pushback and a lot of limitations along the way. So you're persistent and your morale is of huge importance. And to
Wow.
summarize it, just apply. Apply to France, apply to restaurants, apply to bistros, apply to cafes. Normal, nothing crazy, small places.
True. I think well said. I think that's quite inspiring. And yes, I think a lot of persistence is needed. And I mean, while in your journey, you have reached here with a lot of persistence, I'm sure, and with a lot of hard work, I'm sure about it. So I'm going to go to the next where Chef Harsh has said something. Creative dishes are for creative consumers who also get inspired with your thought process. But truffle fries make you money. That's the sad truth.
So he's a friend, and I think he's right about this. And
It's the sad truth.
so, so what I learned in my years cooking in restaurants is that you have to learn the craft of balancing both your ego and the consumer's needs.
Oh,
You can never
yes,
cook for your ego alone, and you can never cook for consumer alone. If you
true.
cook for your ego alone, no one's going to buy your food. If you cook for the consumer alone, you will lose the satisfaction in your work in a heartbeat. So
True.
when I make menus, when I do things, I always ensure that there is something for me on the menu and there is something for them on the menu. At the end of the
Oh,
day, cooking is really a craft, not an art or a science, it's a craft. It's a lot of touch and feel, it's hands-on, it is interactive style of working. And people excel in this craft who generally love the the entire process of creating something. And when you love something like that, naturally you're vested to constantly push yourself, push the boundaries of your knowledge, push what you create. And like he said, at that time, a truffle fries is going to be the highest selling price. So, as much as I would have a house cured bak prosciutto on my souffle menu, I would also have truffle fries on the menu because comfort will always win. Pajamas
yeah,
will always win over stilettos, right?
agreed.
So
That's well said. Yes,
you
amazing.
can't beat that. And he's right. He's right. That's what it
It's
is.
true. It's true. It's a sad truth, but yes, that's true. Okay, so I'm going to go to my last question. And after this, I may conclude. I may open only one question if anybody may want to ask. But as we would be running out of the time, and also our podcast listeners have a time limit of 45 minutes to 30 minutes, that's where the attention span stays as well. So I'm going to ask my last question.
Sure.
My last question is: do you think it is necessary to study culinary to pursue it?
Absolutely not. In hindsight, now that I've done college and everything, and you do not need to do any college to be a chef. So the problem is, no one will take that route. You know why? Because everyone feels safer with a BA in their hand and
True,
then being a chef.
true.
So, and also we live in India, parents, they're going to be like, fuck no, you need to get a degree at least work in something. So, but yeah, like you don't need to. Like honestly, get up, you go work in the kitchen. At the end of the day, it's the simplest shit. It's food, it's cooking, it's not at all rocket science. No matter how much a chef puts his food on a pedestal or his thing, we are possibly dealing and peddling the oldest craft in this world, which is making food. It's the oldest craft. So nothing about it is very complicated or fancy. Yes, it does get technical after a point. It can get technical, but that's your choosing. And the fact remains, you don't need any uh, theoretical knowledge to acquire it because it's all hands-on knowledge. It's a skill that involves
True,
hands. So theoretical knowledge is wasted. Hands-on knowledge is what's all that's required. So
true.
I would encourage people instead to work in a restaurant for 2 months before joining a course Because a lot of people, my industry, my batchmates who have joined college with me, today day and age, 89%, 90% of them are not in the industry. And that's so true for
90% of
everyone who
them.
does are not in the industry, they left the industry, they left food and
Okay.
beverage industry. Because food and beverage industry is a very tricky industry. It's a very tricky place to be, how it works. So before you choose to say, I'm going to cook for a living, you basically want to get a sense of it and see what it feels like. Can I do it? People
True.
come out of colleges thinking that they're going to be holding tweezers and like plating very pretty plates, but that's the farthest thing from reality. You will grind for 16 hours a day doing absolutely mindless mumbo jumbo. But the point of it really comes
True.
down to all that is instilled in you as a cook because consistency is the fundamental centerpiece of being a cook. If you can't be consistent, you are not a good cook. And talent is
True.
secondary in nature. Talent is so secondary in nature,
True.
right? So because of which it basically has no need for college. You want to be a good cook, go and work for a good boss. Go and work for a good chef. That will be the best education you'll get, frankly speaking. So,
Lovely. Wow.
yeah.
That's amazingly said. I think that's quite inspiring with it. So I'm going to end my live now, as I said that it was last question. So
Yes.
let me conclude here. So with it, it has been so inspiring, interviewing you. It has been so comfortable interviewing you, where understanding with the level of knowledge which you have, and with the struggles which you have taken to come here, or you've made it here, is really huge and inspiring. And I mean, hats off, that being persistent and becoming a head chef at Soufflé, I think that's a huge thing. And I think that after interviewing you, I'm sure it's 1:35 right now, and I'm going to enjoy my meal next. I think it's the best interview I've had, and at the right time before my meal. Anyway, jokes apart, but I'm sure with it, this has been an amazing interview with you, and I'm sure that it has inspired me, and I have learned a lot from you. And you're not only an amazing cook, but you're also very business savvy from whatever you have said. And I'm sure a lot of people over here can agree with me that we have learned a lot from you. And thank you so much, guys, for being a part of this live and asking such amazing questions. I think it has been a wonderful live with you, Vidit. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was absolute fun conversation. Loved it so much.
It was lovely. It was lovely. Genuinely, it was lovely. Thank you so much, Vidit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.